Young men speaking in the city square, trying to tell somebody that he cares. Can you blame the voice of youth for asking what is true? Yeah, the ones that you're calling wild are gonna be the leaders in a little while. When will the lonely voice of youth cry, what is true? This our world's waking to a newborn babe, and I solemnly swear it'll be their way. You better help that voice of youth find what is true. And the lonely voice of youth cries, what is true?
All right. Welcome, everybody. If anybody other than Dawn is here. Good to see you, Dawn. Let's go. Let's go indeed. Let's go into the huge world. It'll be very exciting. Yes, let's go. So we have our Muppet Cup. Do you have a Muppet Cup? You should. You can get one at my store. shop.markofwisdom.org. Today I have some ginger lemon probiotic drink. And I have some Sampel because it's Friday night, and not like I drink Sampel every. Oh yes, I do. Never mind. I don't drink big bottles, but that's a Friday thing. And we got some tea. Well, actually, chai from the Table Rock Tea Company. Masala chai, very good, very chai-y. Also very, very smoky. It's good. It's good chai. Good chai. I like a good chai. And it's winter, so it's chai time. It's supposed to be cold tonight. Do not know what's going on. Not too happy. Not even going to be warm tomorrow much. Low 50s. I'm like, what the hell is it? And I got beaver problems. So fighting the beaver, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. I don't like it. I do not like it. And this week, man, what a week. What a week. So yeah, I mean, it's just it's hopefully a reminder of the world is huge and you are small. You're small. And we don't know that anymore. But basically, I think the real sort of noticing for this week is that the war of classes continues. And much of this war of classes is what some people call the cultural war. Again, I don't think it's a cultural war. I've talked about it. I have a video about that here on navigating patterns. And look, if killing a person in New York City is terrorism, then threatening Nick Fuentes should also be terrorism. But of course, somehow it isn't. I'm not a particular fan of Nick Fuentes. But also, what's going on with the standards? So let me show you some rationality, like how rationality should actually work if you assume the world is rational. And oddly, I do, although I tell people the world is not rational, but there's a reason behind that. if killing a single CEO is terrorism, then the people designating it terrorism think that one group was placed in fear by this action. Yep, fair enough. I mean, that's has to be the case for a designation of terrorism. You're preferring that group over other groups as being valuable. Maybe the group of crazy people who listen to Nick Fuentes. Sorry, Adam, but also, Those are effectively class distinctions. That's what they are. Those are just distinctions of class as such. Another example of this is January 6th, right? It's more a class distinction warfare that we haven't been noticing because we put stupid labels on things that are clearly wrong, like culture war. It, it's not a culture issue, it's a class issue. Now, that doesn't explain all of the things that people wrongly identify as culture war, right? But knowing classes are part of every culture might help you understand some of this. You can bring up, uh, you know, feminism, the fight against it or the fight for it. Either works, right? Uh, Feminism was a class issue. Patriarchy is good on my channel with Father Eric and Adam. Um, you can bring up Lily Phillips and the porn issue. Like, well, who's driving porn? Well, lots of people, and some of them are women. Well, what's up with that? Right. And who's supporting this? Yes, some of them are parents of the people involved. And who's against it? Some of them are the parents of the people involved. It's ah, right. You're not going to understand that through a culture war lens. Right. It's not going to happen. And the thing is, there's a lot of things in the world that you don't know, that you're ignorant about, that are not immediately apparent to you. For example, there are scientific white papers on acupuncture. I believe they were done in the 50s. Right. And you didn't know that because the world is huge. Now, granted, those papers were never reproduced, likely because the person, I think it was in Korea, maybe it was in China, who did them probably used a dye that killed the patient. These things happen over there, apparently. Not a fan. Also, got to deal with the world you're in, not the world you want to be in. But, the science never mentions these papers. It just says, well, there's no proof of acupuncture. No, no, there is. There is proof of acupuncture meridians. It exists. And it was done very scientifically. Of course, can't be replicated. But then if we're going to go by, can it be replicated? 80 to 90% of all the quote science needs to be thrown out immediately. This is the replication crisis in science. It's worse in some disciplines than others. I get that. I'm generalizing. Also, they generalize, so too bad. There's a whole science that has always existed on the usage of masks in outbreaks of both bacterial and viral origin. Didn't know that? That's because the world is huge. I actually engaged with all this material. It was way, way, way pre-fake news virus scam, which is still a fake news virus scam. The world is huge. And you don't know what other people know or what they've done for research or what they've read. And maybe they don't even remember and they can't tell you. Doesn't matter. You don't know. That's what matters. Did you know that you had limitations? You do. Make sure you know what they are. Focus on what you can handle. All else is vanity. Just because you see something as arbitrary doesn't make it so. Just because somebody else says, oh, that's arbitrary, that doesn't mean that's true. Oh, that's just a name somebody gave to something. Maybe, because that happens quite a lot. But do you know the difference between just a name and a proper name or a proper naming? A lot of people don't. Maybe it's just arbitrary to you or to the person you trust that you listened to and believed. Perhaps you just can't see the larger picture or enough of it to matter or enough of it to see where this fits in, even though it does. It could be that nothing is arbitrary. Could be. The world is huge. The fact that you don't understand something doesn't mean anything at all. Sorry. Everyone has lots of things they don't understand. Just the way it is. And you use that against them regularly. Do you ever apply it to yourself? The fact that you don't see something in the world, uh, that doesn't mean anything. Everyone has lots of things they can't see. Don't assume that other people know things that you know, even if their experience seems to be the same, because it isn't. They're different people from you. You cannot be immune to or defend against enchantment. So make sure you know what is enchanting you. Make sure you know what's filling that space, what's in charge of that role, what's keeping your world together, unifying it, giving you a worldview. Curate your signal, incoming and outgoing. You can be sad inside and smile outside. It can be done. And maybe you have to, and maybe that sucks, but maybe it's also required. Maybe it makes the world a better place. Who knows? Could be. The world is huge. The world is so huge, we don't see our own role in it. Not clearly. Sometimes we do. And the thing is, we keep misunderstanding the group that we like, or the group that we know best, or a group that we're involved in for the world, the whole world. You can look at something like comic book movies. And sure, they get a lot of viewers, or at least they used to, right? But that is still a small part of the population, guys. I mean, everybody that saw a movie last year is still not a huge percentage of the population. And the thing is, even with, say, comic book movies, it's not all children, right? It's not even the set of all children that like comic book movies. We're not even there. Just for one small example. And it's pretty lame, that number, ultimately. Sure, it's enough to make $1 billion, right? I get that, right? But if it's representing a percentage of the population, what are we learning from this? We're learning from this a few things, right? One of the things we're learning is that you can make $1 billion from a small percentage of the population. Huh. Another thing we're learning is that we don't know how that's happening necessarily. Is it one person seeing the same movie 4 times? Because almost all the big franchise movies consist of people who do that in a percentage that is much higher than it is for other genres of movies. The number of people that went to the theater and saw Star Wars like 10 times when it came out is way above and beyond the number of people that did that for Gone with the Wind or Wizard of Oz. That's good to know. It tells us something important about the world. And the thing is, we learn about the group, but we don't learn about the world. We learn about a small part of the world, and we may think we know what we learned, but there may be more lessons in there. Who knows? The thing is, the world is huge, and you are small, at least by comparison. And the thing is, because we've been told, to be fair, but we think we are supposed to know the world or know a significant part of it. So we try to do that. But that's not Correct. And the thing is, in order to try to do that poorly, we have to appeal to a larger body. And often that larger body we call something like the social norm or the normative order if you want to get fancy. I don't recommend. I would run away from those people manipulating language to be silly. Or something like majority belief, right? But we're still flattening the world. And often this happens because we see and long for the scientific material accuracy and precision that science promises. And this is super attractive in the age of gnosis, for example, in a world where knowledge is a high value, propositional knowledge in particular. So we flatten the world to get that level of certainty, accuracy, precision, and comfort. Age of gnosis, indeed. And our appeals to things like social norms are invalid. The majority of the people are not of significantly above average intelligence to claim that they see the world clearly. Quite the opposite, in fact. And the thing is, something we really don't take into account enough is that no one fools you. You fool yourself by paying attention to the wrong things. The world is attention. I think Jonathan Peugeot is absolutely right about that. And people use their fooling of themselves to convince others so that they feel like their foolishness is truth through normative order, right? It's also false, right? If everyone jumps off a bridge, that doesn't mean you should too. And the thing is, this leads to all sorts of strange behavior. And the fact we don't know what's enchanting us leads us to notice different things at different times and not know why. Right? Now, people go into ad hominem attacks all the time, right? You see it. Do you notice when you do it? Happened to me 3 times today. Like, bro, really? And then why do you do it? Are you avoiding the truth they're telling? Avoiding the conclusion of the facts that are being conveyed by this person? Is that why you're not going after their argument? Do you know why? The world is huge and you are small. And what about the impact of image? Affectation, right? We prefer to get along with people. Of course we do. Normative order. We're safer in larger groups. Normalcy. We want to be normal. We don't want to stand out too much. Go along to get along. But in doing that, are we paying attention to what people say or what they do? Do we know what they said? Can we accurately recall the words that they used? My thesis remains that people say exactly what they mean. And if you apply a rigorous, very strict, and nearly impossible standard of precision to language, you can see right into their soul through their conscious mind into their unconscious desires. I'm not sure everyone can do such a thing, but also it's worth paying attention. Did the person say what I heard? Because often that is not the case. Maybe you're paying attention to how things are or how you feel when somebody says something. And what about when things don't match what people say? Are you paying attention to that? Do you even notice when people are doing one thing and saying quite the opposite? Or what about if the data, maybe all the available data ever collected, conflicts with what people are saying or people have said? The data on masks and mask usage, for example. Don, don, don. Did you even notice? What about if it conflicts with what we ourselves believe? We fool ourselves and others with words, and we fool others to fool ourselves. Primarily, not exclusively, perhaps. Maybe that helped you see a few things, right? Adding this so called nuance to the mix is important. Nuance is another word for detail, by the way. It's a fancy French word, I think, for detail, but it means detail, at least the way people are using it. And the thing is, people confuse the words they use or the words that are used for language. They confuse language as the only or primary form of communication or the richest form of communication when in fact it's the poorest form of communication, at least in terms of information density, well measured. Then they confuse language for thought for an accurate representation of reality. That pattern's everywhere. We're rife with it. This is individualism gone amok. It's also the only way individualism can ever go, because until individualism isn't a real thing, you have to warp the world to make it happen. And that's what's happening. Anselm would be quite upset. Sorry, Anselm. But that is how we got here. The confusion of thought or fantasy, imagination, and reality. We don't know where we end and other things begin. From your mind, through your imagination, into your fantasy, straight out into reality, baby. That's psychological projection. It's also how we model the world. No solution there, but it's good to know that that's what's going on. And imagine if you're trying to understand the world for yourself, how that's affected. You're going to come up with a lot of flattened views of a lot of things. You might even think that the recent statement that incursions on US military bases happen frequently is ridiculous. I was a military contractor. Yeah, incursions on military bases are fairly common. Always have been. I don't know what to say, at least since the 80s when I was there. I don't know. I don't know why that's surprising to anybody, but or why we're living in such a freaking paranoid delusion. No, that's a big deal. It's not a big deal. The military is designed to handle such things. That's what it's for, among other things. And all of this is why we need distributed cognition. You cannot know if you're arrogant or how arrogant you are. This is why we need other people. Are you self-righteous? How would you know? You see yourself clearly? We are excellent at fooling ourselves and using others to provide normalcy for our bad behavior. Right? Oh, it's not that bad because this person's worse. Yeah, that doesn't make something good. It doesn't make it better. The trick is this. When you look out at the world, you can include yourself. You can see how others look arrogant, but you cannot see that in yourself from your internal perspective. It's not possible. Not possible. It's not an option that's available to you. And we're confused about that because we can look out into the world and we can put an avatar, a caricature of ourselves into the world while we're looking out on it and think that we have the same level of resolution on ourselves, because, of course, there we are in the world, as we have with all the other people. But in fact, that's not possible because you're stuck in your perspective. And there's a bunch of things in your head working against you doing that accurately. The so-called unconscious mind or subconscious mind. Don't know why the psychologists and psychiatrists don't talk more about this. It's a little bit more important than the shit they're talking about. And look, people obviously work against their self-interests, both in the moment and long term, all the time, all the time. People won't quit smoking. They won't quit drinking. They won't stop going to bars and making bad decisions. Happens all the time. We see it in other people all the time. We never see it in ourselves. Or worse yet, they do in the moment. And you still do it anyhow. If we were rational individual creatures in full control, this makes no sense. And this is why we need distributed cognition and agency. Others have to help us to be better. What do you think the Lily Phillips argument is about? It's about her choice, her body, and people denying her choice for her body. It's the entire discussion. Who should do that? Should it be your parents or should it be 100 men? Of course, it couldn't be 100 men because that's not a thing, right? But then it would have to be all the men. You want the patriarchy? What do you think it is? Oh no, it should be other women. Have you ever known other women to stop women from doing things? Really? Not reliably. That's why you need distributed cognition and a distributed agency, also known as an institution. Because others have to help us to be the better that we know we should be, that we know we could be, that we know we need to be in a better world. It makes no sense to believe that you can do this on your own. Of course not. It doesn't mean that you won't get better. But are you doing that? Or is that happening because of the world around you? Because of forces you're not aware of? Because you are small? The world is huge. And beware anyone who tells you otherwise. The lies of the individual is straw with your ego. You cannot judge yourself clearly and well. And even if you could, you cannot act on it. Do you go to the gym every day reliably with no one telling you? Do you get up every morning at the same time without an alarm? On and on and on. Do you not eat that candy bar when it's sitting right there? It's a candy bar, I'm eating it. I know that. So I don't buy candy bars. Yeah. Or in this case, other people don't buy me candy bars. Thank goodness. You need help with that stuff. And you can and should help yourself with that stuff. That's not going to get you over the line. In most cases, maybe in a few. What happens? Not enough. You can't judge yourself correctly and clearly. When you're sick, are you the best judge of how to get better? Do you remember what you need to do? When you know you aren't at your best, you're not having the best day, are you the person to tell yourself what you need and how to improve? Perhaps sometimes, but certainly not all the time. The thing is, you don't see yourself the way other people see you. Did you know that you can't do anything? Did you know you can't do everything? Did you know you can't do that all at once? Very negative. But at least that's some kind of limitation that you should take seriously because it gives you the impetus to prioritize so that you don't burn yourself out. Number of people I see burning themselves out and not knowing they burn themselves out is off the charts. It's every individualist I've ever met. I could not tell you how many people I meet that make themselves sick every 3 to 6 months because they run too fast, too far. Now, granted, particularly before I got sick, particularly when I was younger, 4 hours of sleep a night, 20 hours a day, full speed at every possible obstacle, all of which got completely and utterly annihilated by the force that was me. And that still happens occasionally when I feel really good and my illness subsides. I get tons of work done. But I always knew my limits. I always set pacing for myself. Not always. I had to learn that, obviously. But and I was told in some cases. I remember when I worked at UPS many, many, many billions of years ago, back before the dinosaurs ruled the universe. It was just the dinosaurs, me, and UPS. One of the kids, because there were a bunch of kids that worked there, it was a great job. Twilight shift at UPS, man. Great job for a kid. 4 hours a night after that, you got uh, overtime, full-time benefits, union work, Teamsters, pretty good. I'm a Teamster, technically. One of the kids fell through the slats of a protective rail that we used to eat against, or some of them did. I didn't. I don't know. Was that 60 feet? It's a giant concrete structure, by the way. It's a 60-foot pit, I think. Something like that. He leaned back and fell back and obviously landed on his head. Now, I don't know if you realize this, but that's not a good thing to have happen. Now, he did live, I believe, but we'll say he wasn't going to lead his best and most full life any longer. And I remember finding out what happened, and I went over to look. And one of the older guys said, "You don't want to do that." And I said, "What do you mean? I want to see." And he said, "No, you don't want to see that." And you know what I did? I took his freaking word for it. He was like 16, maybe 15. I don't know. One of those two ages. I took his word for it. And I'm glad I did because you can't unsee things. Apparently, there was a lot of blood and probably brains and maybe shards of bone and who knows what else. I'll never know. Better for it. Knowledge bad sometimes. I couldn't have known. I mean, my instinct was to go see. But I knew, well, this person is telling me I don't want to do that. I did in the moment. I listened to counsel and I didn't go look. It's the story of my life. Not every time, made a lot of mistakes. I remember sitting at a computer for 12 hours once, not getting up, and then saying I should go to the bathroom. And the bathroom was a whole 30 feet away. It took me 25 freaking minutes. I never did that again. Whew. There are all kinds of things in place to make sure. Don't sit in one place too long, because I can. Right? I can override all of my physical urge. I learned very early how to do that. Don't do that. Can and should are different things. And the thing is, sometimes we know we're not at our best, and sometimes we know what we need to do to improve, but certainly not all the time. You don't see yourself as clearly as other people see you. You can't do everything. You can't do anything. And you can't do things all at once. I'm sorry to break it to you. And what's the implication here? What if we live in a world where anyone cannot do anything, or a person cannot do anything they wish, or a person cannot do something even if they put all their skill, time, ability, learning into it? What if you'll never be a world-class singer or a world-class musician or a world-class chef or a world-class programmer, no matter what you do? Is that possible? It's likely. It's the norm, if you will. And if that were true, that would have profound implications for how you think about the world, the utility of culture or society, the requirement of distributed cognition, of institutions, the structures of government, of cooperation, community. The functionality of humility, and the observation of the world you see today. Most people are incompetent at their jobs. I don't care what kind of job it is. Worldwide, we've flattened the world in many different ways at many different fractal layers of reality. One result is we have people governing other people running companies, right? People doing jobs who aren't competent. You get into governance, you get elected into government by being competent? No, there's no measure of competence for getting into the government. There's no, well, this person writes really good bills, so we're going to get them elected. That's not what happens. When did that ever happen? Maybe it's happened once or twice. We're like, oh, you're really good at this. You should go do more of it. We'll help you. Yeah, but that's not the norm. That's not how most people do it. Most people go, yeah, I think I want to get elected. So they run a good election, and that will get you into government. Not competence at governing or competence at anything. Because getting elected might have nothing to do with you and everything to do with your team. A good politician understands that, by the way. And that's why politicians tend to be failed lawyers. They know how to cooperate. That might be a hint for success in the world. And the thing is, there's an easy way to spot an individualistic perspective. When somebody says, we must not be, so they'll say something like, we must not be arrogant. Okay, I agree. Who cares? This is irrelevant. Or they say, we must all practice empathy. These are meaningless statements. Meaningless. The we pushes you to include yourself in a picture you draw of the world. And you say, yeah, I can do that. Well, you might be lying to yourself there, by the way. But even if you can do that, and you will do that, and you notice when you need to do that, what if everybody else can't? Because that's happened. We must not be driven by our passions. We must not be controlled by our desires. We must not be swayed by ideology. Yeah, good luck with all that. Let me know how it works out. I'm going to be pragmatisming over here because I'm a pragmatist. And you're limited perspective from inside yourself. You're still stuck here behind your eyes. It means you cannot do that. But again, it seems like we would recognize arrogance in the world because we do. The blind spot is not noticed and never mentioned. The blind spot that you don't notice your arrogance, you just notice it in other people. And when you do notice it in yourself, it's almost always in hindsight. Oh, I don't live in hindsight, dude. This is not helpful. It's not useless. It can be of some utility, but that utility is limited. Anyone saying we must is likely doing this. Flattening of the world, individualist perspective, right? Claiming a superior position. We must. I can, so we all can. I can and do, so we all can and do. Sure. But we must means little enough, anyhow. Even if you could know, how do you validate that you did it correctly? How do you ensure? And how do you enforce for yourself? And more importantly, for others. The we is the worst part. What do you mean we? What if somebody refuses? What if they're just a rebel and they just say, I'm not going to do what you tell me? There's whole song lyrics like that. That might be a hint. There are people like that. Doesn't matter what you tell them, they're just not going to do it. They're contrarians. So that system can never work ever under any circumstances. So those people are crazy people. Don't listen to them. They're enchanting themselves and using you to do it. You have to think poorly of them, but you can still avoid them. You don't have to say everyone I don't want to listen to is evil. But you can treat them as if evil has possession of them, and so you need to be careful around them. That might be a good way to do it. And the thing is, this weekend principle, this individualism is how bad actors get away with their bad behavior. And you help them because you excuse their bad behavior because it doesn't fit your model of them, or it doesn't fit your model of the world, or it doesn't fit your model of the way you want the world to be. Now they are good again, right? And this can create a problem, right? Do you have to watch all the live stream hours from your favorite YouTuber to know if they are evil or if they're possessed or if they have an unconscious desire that they're acting out? Maybe you do, right? The mask slips, maybe not often, but it does, right? This wouldn't help, by the way, because you just rationalize their slip up away and say, oh, they slipped up. They made a mistake. Did they? Are you sure? Are you sure they made a mistake? And there are other reasons too. But hey, it's good to know how big the world is. This isn't hypothetical. I've shown people clips of people that they know and love and trust and respect doing very, very, very bad things and kind of admitting to bad behavior and being completely unapologetic about it. It doesn't change their idea of that person one whit because you aren't persuaded by evidence. You aren't persuaded by propositions. You aren't swayed by conversation. At least not very often. Not about the important stuff. It's good to know that you are small and the world is huge. Your perspective excludes all other perspectives by definition. There's no way around that. And sure, maybe, only maybe, you can change perspectives. But only to one other perspective. And that takes time. It takes energy. It takes attention. And you cannot change your perspective to any other possible perspective because you have limitations. The world is huge. And if you tried to change to enough perspectives to, quote, know the elephant fully, if you will, it would fail because time is change. And it takes time to change perspectives. It's that simple. No one likes that answer. I get that. Also, that's the answer. It's easy, upsetting, but easy. Sorry. Reality is that which objects to your wishes, to your fantasies, not just your subjective experience. It's other things too. And the thing is, in this world, it's almost as if a skill that you yourself lack is a skill that you yourself cannot appreciate or understand. So, the implication here is that a powerful person, someone who isn't as powerful, they're not going to understand that. A beautiful person's perspective on the world is not going to be understood by an ugly person's perspective, and vice versa. They're going to try to understand it, but they're going to misapprehend it because they can't have that perspective. It's not possible. They're not the other person. Someone who has never lacked money with somebody who's been poor. They're not going to understand. And there's lots of reasons you can be poor. There's lots of reasons you can have money. It's not like there's one perspective in either of those situations. And that profoundly impacts how you see the world and what you project upon the world and how you interact with the world and how you interact with other people. That limitation, that lacking, and that lack of understanding of your constraints and your lack of knowledge, your ignorance, which are two different things, seems to affect what you project on the world, how you project on the world, and what world models you create. It's almost as if your limitations define you far more than your skills and abilities. Far more. Almost as if. It's almost like you're a Muppet. I'm a Muppet. We're all Muppets. It'll be fine. Everyone's been a Muppet all along since the dawn of time. And look at all the stuff we have. It's fine. Relax. When you look into the past, you see the thread. See how things came together. When you look into the future, you project the thread. Here's what's going to happen. Projection is real. We need projection. We can't get along without it. We're going to make predictions. However, we need not project into the present. That's psychological projection, roughly speaking. That's a grave mistake indeed. And we don't need to do it. It's an unforced error. Don't do that. You just observe the present. You just look at it. Just observe it and say, oh, that's what it is. You don't have to judge it in the moment necessarily. Or you can take the judgment as is. I mean, somebody says they lied, believe that they're a liar. I mean, it's not that hard, right? And the thing is, projecting into the future is only helpful to find out that you're wrong so that you can adjust your models. That's it. Projecting into the future doesn't help if you're right. You didn't learn anything. No signal came to you. Feels good, though. And that's why it's really important that you surround yourself with people who want the best for you, because those are the kind of people that will push back on you when you go astray. They'll tell you when you are wrong to make you better. And you can tell the difference. Somebody asks you a question and that question bothers you, that's you, not them. Sometimes people ask poorly framed questions on purpose. Sometimes they're bad actors. They're fairly easy to differentiate between the bad actors and the good actors, though. And if you can't, seek help for that, because it can be done. And it's likely that you can do it. Maybe you can't, but it's worth trying and finding out if you can't. And if you can't, don't presume. Get help. There are people out there that will help you. You want people in your life that will push back on your bad ideas so that you can stop having bad ideas. And if people aren't willing to do that, they're making you weaker. They're not your friends. They just want you around to justify and validate their bad ideas for their own purposes, not for yours. Make final cause great again, because meaning causes all things. The fact that you don't see the meaning is your personal limitation. It's not some universal statement about the state of the world or how the world operates. We keep mistaking our experience for the entirety of the world because our experience is our world, but you don't have a world. You have an experience. The world is all the stuff outside of you, including you, but it's way bigger than you are. The world is larger than us, or even all of us. Pantheists would fight back on that, of course, because they need to, because they're solipsists, stray quickly into sophistry and stupidity, all to avoid something higher, something greater than themselves, by using equality doctrine to make everything the same again. How useful. Then we don't know where we end and other things begin. We have no discernment, which we need for judgment, which we need for action. See my live streams. They're over a year old now. Discernment, judgment, action. Get live streams on all three of them. And the illusion that we can know something bigger than us is in our ability to understand something, some small, tiny thing, maybe at reasonably high resolution, about the thing bigger than us. And we confuse that level of understanding, we understand something about it, with us knowing it. No, knowing something about something is not knowing it. Knowing something about programming is not knowing how to program. Knowing something about computers is not knowing how to assemble a computer from scratch or how to design a chip. Knowing something about carpentry doesn't mean you can build a house. And we don't appreciate the difference between knowing some small aspect of something and knowing the whole thing. This is a confusion of the specific for the general. We know something specific, so we think we know the general thing. No, you don't. Or we think we know something general, or I know that exists, and therefore we think we know every detail about it. No, you don't. You are small. And the world is huge. And the thing is, the fact that you are small can be yeah, leveraged to realize things like truth. If someone makes a claim and then they can't back it up with evidence or an example, even if they end up being correct or right, they didn't know that. So they're basically wrong and you shouldn't trust them. Either they got lucky or they were enchanted into that information by somebody else, right? But the problem is they claim to know it, right? And to know something is to know it for yourself. And they didn't do that. So that was a lie. And the thing is, it might not be that they knew consciously or rationally or whatever that they were lying. Of course, I'm a pragmatist, so I couldn't possibly care less about anything in the world because I don't have access to what you know and what you don't know. Right? I don't have access to your level of rationality or conscious engagement or any of that. I don't have access to that, and I never will, and I don't want it. So go away. Could just be they're under the influence of something they don't even see. Maybe something unconscious, maybe a desire or a passion, maybe an institution or an expert that they don't even remember listening to. I don't know. But that's good to know because they're inherently untrustworthy at that point because they don't know themselves very well and they don't know the stuff they're talking about well enough to know the difference. And so they're dangerous. And there are vast implications to this, my friends, vast. Right? The implication here is that that's an awful lot of people that might be possessed by an ideology or programmed and PC'd by a talking head on the TV or on YouTube, right? And therefore, they're operating without their own free will. And they don't know this. They think it's their free will, though. I'm quite convinced. It also means that people who are ignorant or stupid or lack the ability to be educated, because all of those exist, by the way, in what quantities, I do not know, but I'm going to assume it's larger than I can understand because I can't sample all the people of the world, or even all the people in my country, or even all the people in my state or town. I'm going to assume it's a big number. Those people all have the potential to act out evil in the world without maliciousness. Well, that's a problem. I don't think evil requires maliciousness to manifest. Nope. I think it's easy to see malicious evil. I think that's easy to see. It's really hard to see when people are possessed. And even when it's easy to see, people want to do anything about it. I mean, hey, we're living in a world where people don't want to, will not be insistent enough about seeing the Epstein client list or getting rid of a president that isn't all there before he gives more pardons than any other president in history of very bad people. Who knows what's going on there? But you know what? That's your fault because you didn't do what it took to get the guy out of office. So who knows who or what is controlling that office now? That role is still there, even if the person in it isn't all there. Right. Even when we know something's wrong, we won't do anything about it. Oh my goodness, if we think someone's, quote, innocent in some fashion, if there's some way we can find some innocence in them or some spark of goodness or whatever, we're not going to take any action at all. Well, evil loves that because it just spreads. So I'm not in on that plan. I think that plan sucks. I'm a no, in case anybody asks. I'm a treat what you see. I mean, if you want to talk about mitigated consequences, we can do that. Well, let's agree on guilt first. People like to skip ahead a lot, right? They don't want to agree on guilt because then they'd have to agree on punishment, or so they think, or they tie the two together. A lot of people will tie the two together on purpose so that you won't find somebody guilty because you're afraid they'll get the death penalty or something like that. This happens all the time, actually. Or you're afraid they'll go to jail. And it's like, yeah, can we agree on guilt first and then move forward? I had this recently on Twitter, not to that extent. I had a basically, can we agree that people should be held accountable and that they should be called out for doing bad things? And they were like, no, because we can't determine their intent. And I'm like, okay, but can we agree that a thing happened, right? Because that was my question. My question was, can we agree on intent? Because I don't even believe in that. But they jumped right to the end. Straight to the end. Very mysterious. People do this all the time. They're bad actors, by the way. Maybe they don't even know they're bad actors. I don't care. I don't care. I'm pragmatist. I don't care. All right. On that note, I hope you guys found this helpful. If not, lie to me and tell me you did anyway. No, I'm kidding. Give me feedback. Feel free to join. I'm going to try to catch up on comments. Dawn, I'm sure beaver problems are serious, but that made me laugh. Yeah, the beaver problems aren't really that serious. I mean, I have a pond to have a beaver problem with, and the beaver could screw up the dam, and that would be bad. But he's just trying to flood the pond right now, and that's just more annoying because I have to go fix it. Yawn God, you have kids. I don't have kids. Elizabeth! Yay, Elizabeth is back. Focus on what you can handle. All the rest is vanity. Nice. Yeah, I learned that from Ecclesiastes. More people should read that part. Make sure you know what is enchanting you. Yeah, something's enchanting your ass because you're small and the world is huge. If you think you're not being enchanted. If you believe you do not have a religion, one will be provided to you without your knowledge or consent. I said that twice today on the Vander Turkey stream. Young God, mind reading can make someone rich. So rich. No, actually it can't. Watch and learn makes it a monkey see, monkey do world. Yeah, well, mimicry is a monkey see, monkey do world. That's true. We mimic. Alexander Prokopis. Hi, Mark. Hello, Alexander. Do I know you? I don't feel like I know you. No justification for resentment towards the broader structures of distributed cognition, even from the perspective of an individual. Yep, if you are free and self-sufficient, just bypass the constraints. Yep. If only we could, huh? Wouldn't that be cool? Sally Joe, not all knowledge makes you better. Yeah, well, most knowledge makes you worse. Floods are real, and they're not just for animals and arcs. Alexander, and what if the sexual crisis, I don't know what that is, in all its manifestations for men have a sexual crisis, is part of an attempt to seize the mirroring capacity of women for ourselves. Let's see if I can figure out what you're getting at here, Alexander. I don't think women have a mirroring capacity any better than men, actually. Women have a getting along capacity, but that they usually do that through what from the male perspective, what men would call extreme self-sacrifice. Men are like, I'm willing to sacrifice for my boy to a point, and then I'm just gonna punch him out. That's pretty much how it works. Now, you can argue that, well, we have 2 generations or a generation and a half or whatever number you want to pick, I don't care, of soy boys or whatever, but also soy boys. So yeah, right. right? Too much like one way to see it is uh, there's masculine and there's feminine, right? And it's there and it ain't ever going away, right? And you can kind of squish it and push it, whatever, but the total volume remains the same. So if you squish it here, it squishes out there, right? And so over here you see, oh, see, I've squished out the toxic masculinity, but really it's just kind of on top now, and manifests in a different way, right? You just don't see it right away. So I think that's closer to what you're getting at. If not, revise your comment and I'll try to understand you better. Sally Joe, you become what you practice. Yes. So paying attention to what you are practicing. Oh, that's true too. Huge things Dr. Peterson taught me. Yes. I'll 3 cheers for Dr. Peterson. Don't tell Elizabeth, she'll get upset. Elizabeth, hi Sally. True enough. We become what we practice. Yeah. Yeah. It's fine. Oh yeah, I know. I saw you when you made that comment. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, it's fine. Wisdom dwells with discernment. Oh, I like that. That's quite good. I like that a lot. Elizabeth, observe the present. Don't project. Oh, I should pin this link to the top of navigating patterns, shouldn't I? Sorry, small distraction while I remembered something. This is how my brain works all the time, by the way. I'm always running like 4 threads. Chapter 400. Elizabeth, I hope you're writing all these down. I got to work on book number 1 first, and then I'm jumping straight to book number 2. But book number 1 is well on the way. I did some work on it today, in fact. I have an editor, so that's been editor, angel, same word, just saying. Elizabeth, it's hard to find a good person. It is to some extent, right? But you can find a good enough person and you can make each other better. Right. But you have to be motivated to make each other better. And part of that means ditching the toxic people in your life. And a lot of people are just not willing to ditch talk. I got one good thing out of them once ever. Okay. And I can do that with anybody I meet on the street. So what? Right. Elizabeth, we need judgment for attention. Oh, Elizabeth. We need to be able to judge when our attention has gone horribly wrong or been hijacked. I don't think we need judgment for attention. I think judgment is orthogonal to attention. And judgment is how we adjust attention, for sure. That's true. Or one of the ways we adjust attention. That's not the only way. Awakening from the Muppet Crisis. This experience versus true world is the essence of what's wrong with many Muppets. Misunderstanding of the Matrix. Yeah, or the idea that we're in a Matrix. Right. Well, it's a 0% coincidence that people are talking about our inability to understand reality. Right. While at the same time struggling with what it means to experience something. Right? Because the two are tied to, if you think what you're experiencing is not reality, or that your experience doesn't map to reality, then right. But that's also a denial that reality exists, and they don't see it that way yet, but it will get there, and they'll hit the nihilism. Like it'll suck them right in. And that you're right. I mean, this is people. We're doing the Matrix thing. Could do the Matrix thing. Elizabeth. Not that easy to see malicious evil. I don't know, Elizabeth. I think it is. I think we've lost the skill, maybe, for sure. A bunch of people have. But like, I do it all the time. I'm like, yep, 100%. And it seems to be pretty accurate. And I don't know. I mean, I think it's really easy. I think it's really easy. Like, I mean, there are certain constraints, right? So if you tell somebody something and they act contrary to that, you can always make the excuse that they didn't hear you or they didn't understand you, right? I don't give people excuses. I'm like, bro, I told you, and too bad consequences. And sometimes those consequences are now I have to designate you as evil. And yeah, if I told you not to do something because something bad was going to happen and you do it anyway, I assume maliciousness in all cases. Sorry, I do. That's not the only way to determine maliciousness, right? But if you see somebody get warned about something and they do it anyway, that's malicious in all cases for me because I can't determine intent. And I don't need to. Like because just because you didn't intend to be an alcoholic doesn't mean you're not going to be an alcoholic. So like what difference does intent make? If you get possessed by your passions, your desires, and ideology, the fact that you didn't intend for that to happen or the result of that to happen are freaking irrelevant. Like they just don't matter to the outside world. And I can't know that. Sally Joe. Hi, Elizabeth. Yeah, everybody's happy to see Elizabeth. Yeah. Alexander. All right. I meant there is a dimension to the crisis of individualism. There's a crisis of individualism. What the fact that people think that's a thing that you can do? That's a crisis. Okay. That is men wanting to understand themselves perfectly without recourse to a relationship. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay. Maybe applies to both sexes. It does. It does. But this is what I call the intimacy crisis, right? Like we don't know how to have healthy conflicts with one another, right? Because we don't have a space to have healthy conflicts, right? I just, you know, it's it's hard to call out people's bad behavior. Now, there are tons of exceptions to that. Like I call out Sally Joe's bad behavior all the time, very harshly sometimes, by the way. But we have a relationship that has been built up over time, right? And that creates a quality of connection, right? That can hold my impatience and harshness, right? And hers with me, because she goes after me quite a few times for my bad behavior, right? And that didn't happen overnight. It took a very long time, right? 4 years, something like that, right? But that's the intimacy crisis. You have to have a quality, a certain quality or set of qualities of relationships in order to get away with that. You can't walk up to somebody on the street and say, "Hey, you're a pig for throwing out a cigarette butt," right? But you can do that with a good friend. That's weird. And that's the thing. That's the thing. Sally, you don't see malicious intent, but you feel it. Yeah, intuition's a big part of this, right? Hopefully, you haven't desensitized yourself to your feeling to be rational, right? Don't desensitize yourself to your feelings in this for the sake of rationality. Good point, Sally. Well, this overemphasis of rationality definitely kills intuition. And yeah, without intuition, there's a bunch of stuff we can't do. A bunch of stuff we can't do or can't do correctly. And the approximations are freaking horrible. Absolutely horrible. And that's the intimacy crisis. You need intuition to have a quality of relationship. You're not going to be able to quantify quality ever. Even if you call it qualia, like some freaking psychopathic crazy person. Anybody who says the word qualia, like, I mean, you know, context is important, but like people who just throw out the word qualia, just shut them off. Just run away from them. They're not gonna. It's gonna be a bad time. Sally, I mean, I'm Baptist enough. Mark's judgment is nothing. It's true. True too. I can't beat a Baptist preacher, that's for sure. Some people might say what I do is preaching, but Sally knows better. And if you don't know the difference, fair enough also. There's a huge difference. Sally, oh, you can walk up to litters and tell them off. I've done it. Yeah, well, it's not a good strategy. Sally's not a good strategy. I know that's why you want your mechanical spiders. Heaven help us. Save us from Sally. Elizabeth, when you love someone deeply and care for them, the love can blind you. Yeah, or when you love the idea of equality deeply, right? which you get sucked into equality doctrine, and you really want everybody to be equal, and now you're lifting up people who can't handle it, by the way, and dragging down people who can. Or maybe you're not dragging them down, but you're also not helping them. Well, if you don't help the competent people to get more competent, all you're going to have is a bunch of not competent enough people in the world. Look around. Does that look familiar? I've got hundreds of stories, maybe thousands of these stories. That's the competency crisis. We did a live stream on that earlier. You can check that live stream. Alexander, I agree. Qualia is awful. Yeah, I mean, you're trying to science quality. Science is dissection and measurement. You can't dissect quality, and you can't measure quality by definition, by the way. So otherwise, why language? Why talk? Why proposition? Pointless. Completely pointless. Sally, primordial agentic qualia conversation. Oh, Sally, I'm going to drive out there and punch you for that. For sure. Punishment must be meted out. Torturing me with my own insecurities and trigger words. It's unfair. It's unfair. I'm on YouTube, damn it. No one wants to join me? Did the link go up? What happened here? Looks like a link. No Jesse. No Castle's busy. Castle's been betraying me. Although he's working on the book, so it doesn't matter. I gotta have more to drink because I don't know. I'm up on tea today, but I'm down on general drinking. And it's usual for Fridays because I have the big Sampel. So then I don't drink the little Sampel and the LaCroix and all the other stuff that I usually drink. Because I know I'm going to drink way too much Sampel all at once. But it's good. It's good once a week to do that. I only do it once a week. I mean, we do have a bunch of these in the house, but I try to never drink them except on Fridays because I'd just suck them all down, and then we'd have none in the house, and then Friday would come around and I'd be sad. I don't want to be sad on Friday because it's Friday. It's the holidays too. Merry Christmas, everybody. It's gonna be a great week. That's for sure. It's been a busy holidays. Busy holidays. Not traveling this year. Which is good. It's good. And man, seeing somebody enchanted and then pointing out to them, no, you were just enchanted. Today, that was tough. I don't know, you don't know. Did they get the message? Did they really understand what I said? Like, no. The reason why you think there was a change is because the thing that caused the change is not here. And the change was a change in perspective on your part, altered by somebody else. Wasn't anything I did. Sorry, bro. I'm pretty much me 24/7. 365. Sorry. Yeah. It's just and things are always a little different. So you can always point at oh, you're a little different. Like, well, yeah, probably. Alexander says Merry Christmas. Ixnon says Merry Christmas. I know there's no book club tomorrow, so there's no language creation book club. And I think we're doing a Moby Dick on Father Eric's channel, but on a different day, which is good. I need to get these book clubs over so that I can start the 12 Rules for Life book club. And the 12 Rules for Life book club is going to contain exercise. It's going to be a pragmatic approach to Peterson's stuff. And then we'll see if I do 2 books. And I didn't because I got sick. I was in the hospital. I didn't read the new one yet. So whether or not I can get that done this weekend without other book clubs to do, we'll see. I've got, I don't know, 3 active books already, which, and then I've got the other 12 that are been on hold indefinitely for a while. Well, at least one of which I'm dropping. I don't know. I have to go back through the books and see what's out there, half read or a third read or whatever the hell it is. Uh-oh. Oh no. There goes the stream. Let's see if she killed her YouTube tab or if she forgot. Elizabeth.
No, I didn't have to do anything.
Well, maybe they
Mark,
fixed it.
I can't figure this out. I'm in Sicily.
You're in Sicily. Oh wow, cool. What time is it there? It must be super late.
It's 2:20. Yeah, but sometimes.
You have an iPhone.
Wait, why am I hearing double?
I'm not hearing double. Maybe it works differently on the iPhone. Who knows? Perry says, nice eye device. Thank you, Perry. I like it.
What have I done that I can, it says
what?
What am I doing wrong, Mark?
I don't know. You have an iPhone. I don't know the iPhone, but the tab for YouTube is still open, is my guess, somewhere. I don't know how to get to it, though.
But I'm on an iPad. I'm on my iPad here. I have no idea.
I don't know either. I don't know how to use...
Your live stream it's so good. You're so good. And you're writing your book?
I'm writing a book. I'm writing the Wisdom Community Workbook. We'll be done by the end of the year. Yeah, it'll be done this month.
What's it? What are you calling it?
It's the Wisdom Community Workbook. I mean, I don't know that that's the final title. Jesse. But this is going to be it's a 2-part book, right? Part of it is the theory behind what a community looks like, and a wisdom community in particular, and how to build one, and all the parts and that stuff. And then the second part of it is all about having a workbook that allows you to develop a workbook for your community, right? That customized to your needs. It's very meta, Jesse. I figured you'd like it.
First rule of Fight Club is not to talk about Wisdom Community Fight Club.
That's why that's always silly. But yes, don't go meta. Sally, Wisdom Community Workbook, rounded up by Castle. Yeah, Castle Adams is editing it. Woo! Yeah. Joseph, how to become part of a wisdom community. Yeah, well, Joseph, that's going to be part of the book. Although it's more about how to build the damn things, because we don't have too many of them. And the real problem is the ones we do have, people are just rebelling against, right? They're just like, hell no, we won't go. It's like, fair enough, I guess. But also, like, at some point, you're going to get lonely and nihilistic and depressed. So, right. So maybe if we just, give a little appreciation. I've mentioned this before, right? Like, one of the books I read very early on that helped me a lot to be a better employee was the 10-Day MBA. Because once you engage with how hard it is to build and run a business and how many moving parts there are, it really gives you this idea. There's all these perspectives you can take on a business, and that decision might not have been made for technical reasons, right, or efficiency reasons. It might have been made for HR reasons, which might be more important actually, or maybe it was made for HR reasons and it was a bad decision. That happens too. Doesn't matter though, right? But at least you get a flavor for how complicated things can be, how complex they are, and how it's not, not that way. Sally, first rule of Wisdom Community is not to deny it exists and has to have leadership. Yes, that is first. true. What's going on, Jesse? How you doing?
Oh gosh, end of the year, end of a year. It's very strange. It feels like a lot of things are preventing the year from ending. Like there's always a natural rhythm to a year ending, and this last three, I'm not sure if it's just my own experience here down under, or if it's kind of phenomena that's happening in the West, but things are being stretched out, which is not a good sign.
I agree.
Yeah. And there used to be a trends cycle too that I've noticed, and the trend cycles are getting slower. Things are taking longer to phase out of appeal. So, oh gosh, yeah.
Interesting. I think I agree with all that.
Yeah. Is this the same Joseph that I follow now on Twitter again? Because I've never talked to this individual.
I have no idea. Joseph, who is the most wise? It doesn't matter. You just need to find somebody wiser than you, and hopefully you can both get better.
A tree. A tree is the most wise.
True. An old tree. Got to be old enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a Tolkien reference, but anyway. What's going on in Sicily, Elizabeth?
Oh, well, I'm on a little island where you can't avoid people, and it makes you very wise because there are no cars. I'm on a little island without cars, so you have to walk on the old pathways. So you have to see people. You actually have to have an interaction with people. It's tough. We're so used to not interacting with people now at all. And so when you're in, and the other thing is it's an island and you can't escape from here. Like it's a perfect monastery, really is, because you can't escape. So you have to, so you don't really want to be here, but you really have to be here because it's so real. Because you're interacting with people and, and, and you can't go anywhere. There's no you can't divert yourself, and so you're stuck in reality. And it's like people who stay here, it's people who come here and stay here, it's because they literally have developed such an allergy to the flat world, to individualism, that they can't survive any longer. Like they just aren't gonna, I wouldn't survive anywhere else. So you have to be here. And it's so you so what you do is you're exposed to to yourself and your emotions. You can't put your emotions anywhere else either. And there they are. And so then so there it's I think it's the way people lived probably before what 1850 1880 industrial revolution, before the industrial revolution really took hold, when everybody left the countryside. And the other thing is people are still working with their hands here, so they're fishermen, or they have their little gardens, right? And and there's only 100 permanent residents, so you're also, I mean, you've got a group right there. And so, but everybody's working with their hands. And they chose, it took me like 9 visits to realize why they've done this. They have these huge wooden fishing boats, not the ones with the housing, but just like a large fishing boat open. And when the winds come, because these are the I'm in the islands of the wind, the god of the winds. And so when the winds come, the boats have to be hauled up, because guess what? Otherwise you don't have a boat, because the beaches, like today, that's why the hair's like this, because the beaches change shape with the winds. The beach where I always go, which is called the Beach of the Dead, because that's where the American soldiers' bodies washed up. The beach, and it's also called the Beach of the Dead because when there were people who had great sicknesses that they thought were contagious, they used to send them out here, because I'm out in the countryside. I put myself in the furthest place, even on this little island. There's nobody here with me. I'm totally alone. But anyway, so when they're hauling these boats, these great boats up, it would be so easy, wouldn't it, to build a ramp with rollers to make it really
Yep.
easy to pull up the boats. But guess what? They don't do that. They all, somehow this works, don't ask me. It's embodied experience. John Vervaeke would like it. Because somehow, whenever anybody needs to pull up a boat, there's always enough people to go
Mhm.
and help pull up the boat. And I thought to myself, so why don't they have a ramp with rollers? Well, guess why? Because they're so intelligent, it makes us look ridiculously dumb and flat.
Yeah, you don't need it. You'd rather.
Technology, they refused. They've
Yeah.
refused to adopt the
Right.
foolishness of technology that destroys community. They just haven't done it. And so it's like it's incredible to watch because I've been watching the port for months and probably years. And there's always somebody there to help, and I don't know how they're always there, but they are. I guess intuition, I guess maybe when you're not submersed in technology, then your intuition, right? So you're for sure you and
Yep.
they're brilliant people talking about observe the present. Oh yeah, you'll like this, Mark. There was one olive, I went picking olives. They still pick the olives, and that's an experience everybody should have.
Hmm.
Picking olives is something so beautiful you can't imagine, because olive trees, which I didn't know, are not like Canadian trees because the leaves are so slim. So there's all this space and air and sun coming through the trees, right? It's
Mm.
not like our experience at all. So you're in a very magical, spacious place. So I asked this lady who can't read or write why this one particular tree was so abundant with olives. Because many of them, it was a really dry summer here, so there's no rain, and so the olives couldn't become plump and be there. So they were all dried, and there's a lot of goats here, and so the goats are starving, and so I guess they've eaten a lot of the olives, as it turns out. Anyway, there's
Mm.
one tree. There's only one tree of all the olive trees up in the heights, and I said to the lady who can't read or write. And you should see her. She's just like such a character. She makes me look like super conservative. Anyway, yeah,
Impossible.
no, I'm serious. The people here are so, talk about, you don't need individualism here, because if you're real, you are such an individual. You can't even imagine what these people are like.
You're unique.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so I said, so, and so what is this about this tree? Because they had these beautiful olives. I'll show you the ones I collected, by the way, because I'm so proud I've never done it before. And she said one word, well, two in Italian, one word. Guess what she said? Quality. She's brilliant. She's
Quality tree.
freaking brilliant.
Yeah.
She didn't need to expound for an hour. She said one freaking word as she was picking. She sussed me out. I couldn't fool her for 1 minute.
Yeah.
I was starting to spin. You know how we like to spin our stories. We have these stories that are usually accepted by all the other fools around us.
Yep.
No, she wouldn't even. She just asked me one question just to let me know that she knew exactly what was going on with me. Like, she just would not have it. So what you do when you pick olives, they still pick olives in Italy, right? It's not see, they're just these like little tiny little olives, right? Because
Yeah.
they weren't developed. So the coolest thing that you do is you put them, if you have more, I didn't have more, but you put them and just you put salt on them every day until it draws out the bitterness from the olive. They are so, do you know how precious these olives are? Because I went and picked them. Do you know how much meaning is in these olives? Like, I'm sorry, everybody, but there is so much meaning. Each olive that I eat has has the most profound flavors that you could ever imagine, because I had to climb up to Pianicello. You have to imagine, to climb up to Pianicello, you have to walk up these steps. Everything's up because the island looks like a triangle. So and I had to meet this lady I'd never met before.
Which
Way
which
up
island
there.
are you on, Elizabeth? Alexander wants to know
Sorry?
where you. Alexander wants to know where you are. What's the place called?
Oh, am I allowed to say? Because I thought I wasn't supposed to reveal my place, but I don't know.
You can if you want. I don't care. You can dox
Oh, I
yourself.
thought there was a rule or something. Like, I don't
Nope.
understand. I'm on a little island in the Aeolian Islands. It's called the Aeolian Islands. And I'm on the smallest island furthest out into the windswept Mediterranean Sea. And it's called Alicudi. And there's still donkeys that haul your luggage and everything else up the hill, because there are no cars. There's one vehicle for transporting the garbage that goes along a little road that takes about 1 minute to drive along. That's the vehicle. Everything else is donkeys and people. But anyway, so yeah, you have to climb, and these steps, okay. The ones that the engineers wrecked from the stupid European Union, because they got money from the European Union, they should have known better.
Yeah.
Oh, but that wasn't the locals that did that, by the way. That was the damn people who've come here to live.
Yeah.
And they decided they
Yeah.
knew better than the islanders about how to run the island. And yeah, evil has infected. But,
Yeah.
and guess what the engineers did? Oh, you'll know. You two will know. They did it the way engineers would do. The stairs that are at the top of my beautiful island are artwork that take your breath away, because they were made by the ancient people, and
Right.
you can actually fly down them, and I'm not exaggerating. You can actually almost literally fly down them, because they curve, first of all, so they're incredibly beautiful, but they've done them intuitively for the human
Mhm.
body, so that you're, and I guess the way our vision works, I don't know, but each step going down, they've used each little rock as it needs to, so they were working with their hands, and you can see where you need to just alight yourself each time you go down, right? There's one rock that calls to your attention. It's crazy. There's one rock and it just like literally pulls your eyeballs.
Yep.
And so you know to put, but you can literally fly down them. They're exquisitely beautiful. And the ones that the engineers did, they're all done mechanically and left brain. And so they've ruined people's knees and backs, because they're not meant for human beings. They're left brain. They're totally left brain without integrating into the
utilitarian.
way reality is. Yeah. So that's the
Right.
story. So anyway, you have to go up all these stairs, and it's quite something to have to do that, and then have to meet a person, and then be able, and then pick the olives. And oh, guess what else? They take the ones off the ground, even if they're in the excrement. Yep, they do.
Wow. How long are you there for? Why are you still there?
Forever. I'm staying here forever. I'm not joking.
You're not leaving?
No, I'm an elective resident now, so I might stay. I think I'm going to stay here. Well, I can't predict the future, but yeah, because my cognition is a different experience actually here. And the other thing is that I'm really fascinated, because there's people who don't read or write, and that means they are real right brain, right? Because they haven't been taken over by the prepositional left at all. And so Rosina, the lady who said quality, is one of them. She says profound things that come from ancient wisdom, storytelling, and also from the Catholic stories. So she's like a walking Catholic church. She's and it can't, because they've had to survive using their bodies. They had no choice, or they'd be dead, and there wouldn't be any there. That would be it. Then you can't you can't go left brain. You actually can't
Yeah.
do it.
No.
But you don't need to go left brain, because what you're doing, this is my theory, and I wrote about this 40 years ago, because you're constantly doing this is what I think, because you're constantly grasping, because you're picking olives, you're picking capers, you're doing things which focus your attention left brain. So all your activity is left hemisphere all freaking day long. And guess what that does? Is any lady knows who irons, or man, frees up your right hemisphere.
That's right.
And so you've just got this incredible,
That's right.
so it's
Yep.
actually the left and the right hemisphere working properly here on this island. And so what I wanted, so I'm trying to understand what it means to have a balanced brain. And so there's a few people left here, Rosina being one, and there's a fisherman, Silvio. And you know what he said, Mark? You'll just love this for your wisdom group community. So the other day I got off the, I was leaving the aliscafo, which is the hydrofoil. An aliscafo is a hydrofoil. And I was leaving because and coming up to my place. And I saw the old fisherman, and he greeted me. And of course he said something about, oh, you've just come back from Lipari, which is the main island. It's in, by the way, these islands are in Virgil. They're in the ancient, these are in the first chapter of the Aeneid. They talk about Lipari. And anyway,
Aeolus,
so
who gave Odysseus the bag of containing the winds.
thank you.
Quoting Alexander. There we go.
Yeah. And they're in a lot of the myths. And so what was really, guess what he said? So he asked me, he said, oh, you've been to Lipari? Yeah. And I said, yes. And I said, how are you? But he was already way ahead of me, because I'm stupid and I think there's an individual. So I said, how are you? Well, how dumb am I? Okay. The aliscafo had come. You have to imagine it. It's full of people. And we're the last island on the trip. And so, and there's wild storms here. It was so great. There's 15 feet waves tonight as I speak. And
Right.
so guess what? The aliscafi can't come when there's big waves, and neither can the ship. So anybody who wanted to come took that last aliscafo the other day. And so I said to him stupidly, like, this is a perfect example of the flat world and me and how stupid I am and foolish. I said, how are you? But he said at the same time, guess what he said? We've all arrived. He was already in the wisdom community. We've all arrived. He was talking about, he doesn't live in the world of how are you? He lives in the world of all the people of the island have arrived. Like it's just amazing to be with people who live in the world that you're talking about, and that we have lost everywhere in the Western world.
Also,
it's gone.
That's also the statement that he's complete. Right, at the same time. So he kind of answered your question. He just didn't answer it from an individualistic perspective. Yeah.
But this guy, these two people, thank you very much, Mark. Thank you. And the strange thing that's really scary is as I was saying, como stai, it was so weird. Thank you for saying that. I wish I had a recording, because I was going como stai, but already abbiamo arrivati. It was like this, like it was like it was like the whole corrupt Western world meeting the medieval. It was just like, oh my gosh. And these things happen continually with these people who can't read or write. Because they're so, their attention, the way they, and their listening ability. Oh my God, it's scary how they listen here. Like when Silvio's listening to you, you can just, I'm sorry, but there's a presence. There's an eternal
Right.
presence to it because of the way they
Right.
listen, because they're all right hemisphere, and so it's the five senses, right? It's the five senses. It's intuition, it's imagination, and it's the ability to see the patterns, like Boethius was talking about. These two people are still living that. So,
Night,
sorry, I'm
Alexander.
talking too much, Alexander.
That's all right. Yeah, look, I want to riff off that for a bit, and then we'll send it over to Jesse. Has a chance to say a damn thing for Jesse. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of advice out there from a lot of people about what we need is more books, right? Or there's the Peterson Academy, which I am so far against, you can't imagine. I'm just like, no, better lectures is not going to solve the meaning crisis. Holy crap. How do you think we got here? Everyone's more educated and we have a meaning crisis. No one can make that connection. So the question is, well, if the damn data is there and the evidence that read Dale Farron, by the way, she's got a whole thing on education. She's the one I've been quoting, or not quoting, but saying, like, if you go to pre-K and you go to kindergarten and you sit at the desk, your outcomes are crap. They're garbage. And she's actually got all the data collated.
Who's this, Mark? Who is this?
Dale Farron. Dale Farron.
Farron?
Farran. Dale. Yeah. And the thing is, of course, because if you train yourself propositionally, or you train somebody propositionally too early, you cut off their intuitive training, right? You cut off their poetic way of informing the world. Yeah. And yeah. She shows the correlation, both directions, which is really important. So we have all the data, we have a more educated society, and we have a meaning crisis. And these people who talk about inference and logic and reason and rationality can't figure this out for some reason. And they just resist it. And there's all these people going, no, what we need is better education or more books, or if we read old books or something, as though if it's an old book that makes it better. And I keep going, you people didn't even correctly tell people what the allegory of Plato's cave meant. And you think them reading it on their own is going to be better? Are you high or are you stupid? Because I get questions, and those are the only two questions. Is it that you're high on drugs or you're that stupid? Because it's got to be one of the two. Because I got nothing else, man. Like, why do you think that's a solution to a problem? Like, and it's all to avoid formation. Nobody wants to take responsibility for formation. Well, you know who's going to take responsibility for formation? Pedophiles. Do you know how I know? Look around. What do you think happened? Everybody else left. They're like, oh, you know what? We're going to tell kids what to do. We're not going to tell people how to be. We're not going to explain to people the world. We're not going to form people. We're not going to take responsibility for people. You know what we're going to do? We're just going to let it all unfold. And of course it can't. So someone comes in, well, predators come in. You dumbass. What do you think's going to happen? Really? You think it's just going to work out okay because individuals? Like, where did you get this idea from? What world have you been looking at? And of course we can't listen. We can't listen because we're busy reading books that teach us inference. We're not being formed by the books because books don't form you. You'll read whatever you want into a text. I see people do it all the time. People do it with things I say constantly. I can just go in any forum, anywhere, any live stream, and you can watch people just claim I said the most outrageous things. And look, you made a claim. I literally asked a question. Asking a question and making a claim couldn't be more different, dude. Where did you get this from? And it's from their imagination and their inference, imprinting onto the world, psychologically projecting onto the world. And I'm like, you think them going off, learning on their own is going to make that better? Because I'm 100 billion% certain it's going to make it 1 billion times worse, at least. I don't even know how you think.
It's so true.
I know you don't think. For sure, I know that. All right, I'm done.
Right.
Jesse, please take us to a saner place. Because Elizabeth and I are incapable.
You're wanting me of all people, to take you to a saner place? Gosh, that's a task.
You can do it.
Oh gosh. Okay.
So true.
So Elizabeth, you really highlighted something to me that I've been intuiting, but I've not had the framework or the words for it yet. Which is that the modern world is, you made a preference that the modern world is built on the left brain activity, the robotic, as well as Mark was just talking then about, we've built a culture that's media orientated to the point where you no longer seek out that which brings life to you. It's informed or imposed on you. So and that's what's causing this split of fractions you're talking about of the mind on the island. In the island is a great metaphor, by the way, for Holy Hill, which you also talked about as well. And you have to integrate those two things. The experiential as well as the framework. It's you constantly see, like, the binary code, right? It is a framework. It's literally close, open, close, open, close, open, close, open. It's constantly part of wanting the exact procedure and what's going on with. I'm actually learning this training course, right? So I'm learning how to train and teach other people and facilitate classwork. And I'm a highly, my 30 I'm quite a rare individual. Not saying that because it's just true, but I actually got it. My right brain is 30% bigger than my left brain. It's just because of the way I was born, etc., etc., etc. Yeah. So it's like I'm highly right-brained, and I'm probably, if I was to get tested, I'm like severely dyslexic. Like I have to rework, undo, like, I'm aesthetics and everything. It's pray for Christina. Anyway, she has to live with me because I'm like, why is that cup on that table that's breaking the flow of the room, and that's really upsetting me right now? I need to. It's like almost Asperger's there. But anyway, so I've had to learn. Hey, you want me to be in this robotic system of training someone, which is very procedural. Where's the code? Where does it say that you're doing X and Y, X and Y, X and Y? And it gets to the point where I'm no longer actually teaching someone in that intuitive sense where they actually receive the information and integrate it, which is the right brain. They're just being they're being taught this open close. You take X to Y, X to Y, X to Y, X to Y. It's a constant, which is not learning.
System. Yeah.
Yes, it's a closed system. And that's actually, you can see that's what's happened within our systems, but also within our education streams as well. It's that here's what you need to know and only know. That's the impositional, and here's what we teach you to seek out. So you basically, again, coordinating off the right brain, so you can only focus on these are your superheroes, for example. Don't go seeking out all the other stories that maybe contrast or inform you. I think that's also it's a pain point that many people seek out. Is I want to learn, but which, I've been taught this binary. I can either learn in the left brain or the right brain. I can either be an economist or a sociologist, but I can't, I won't be able to connect the two together because, I can't make money on that. Well, who can? Or if I can, I'm an individual. I'm the hero that's, discerned the economy is going to crash and it's these people's fault because this social economic is like, wow, that's quite it's a big burden to put on your shoulders. And that's what the matrix is. I constantly talk about is that sense that you can be an individual by your own merit, and it's not happening. So when you meet people that have that are free of their individualistic functionality, like people that live on islands or in rural communities, they don't come into the phenomena or reality with this juxtaposition constantly living in their head. Whereas,
Right.
do I need to be left brain right now, or do I need right brain? Like they're just,
Right.
you could say them. They're more comfortable with the open future. They don't need things to be closed off. Like the past,
Right.
you could talk to
Right.
probably someone there, and they could be talking about a memory as if it was just yesterday, or if it's going to be, and that's that sense of arrival. So
Yeah, it's there still. I'm positive that that memory. This is another thing. Help me figure it out. But memory is definitely. I hate to say it, but to me, it feels like their bodies are actually not books, but their bodies are actually holding the stories, the stories of millennia, very much so, because the way they speak sounds biblical, or it sounds like a Greek myth. So they're but notice there's few words too, to your point, both of you. They use very few words. They don't speak very much. And when they do, you know what? You can feel, Jesse, you can feel the weight of each word. I'm not lying. You can feel the weight, because to your point, Mark, they're doing what we don't do. Those words have so much meaning in them because they're still coming from the real world, where everything is still connected. And when I eat one, this is the experience. So when the words actually have weight to them, all of them, and when they speak them, so they sound more like they're speaking an oracle, I guess, in a sense, like they're wisdom, in the sense oracles as words, never mind whether they're on drugs. They don't need drugs, Peterson.
enchanted.
But the words that they use are placed so carefully, because they don't need a lot of words, because they understand what John Vervaeke's trying to get at all the time, what he does get at. In fact, they understand that they don't need John Vervaeke to enlighten the world about it. And so yeah, and so whenever you talk to either of them, you're in the ancient world. One young fellow said, when the fisherman dies, the whole world's going to disappear, and he's right.
Yeah. Well, but I think
Right?
the difference is that their speech is fully embodied, and our
Absolutely.
speech is based on books. And you know what books are? Does anybody know? Books are dead. They're dead. They're dead ideas dissected and written onto dead things, dead animal
Absolutely.
skins. They're
Dead.
dead. They're like
Yeah.
death upon death upon death. It's not useless. It has its utility for sure, but it's useless outside of a body, right? And nobody wants to take responsibility for formation. That's why the Wisdom Community Workbook is so important. Like, no. You have to take responsibility for a community, and you have to form that community. And then the people in it are formed by it and help to form it, right? But it forms them more than they form it. Sorry, asymmetry is part of the world, right? The bigger thing impresses upon you. It's not that you don't have an impact on it. No kidding. Genius. Thanks, Captain Obvious, for the update. Couldn't figure that out by waking up in the morning and looking around, right? Okay, fair. Doesn't make you an individual, doesn't make individuals real. It doesn't do any of that. It just says you're part of the world and therefore you impact the world. Thanks. A real genius take there. Got to have at least an IQ of 4 to figure that out. Okay. their words are embodied, they're embedded in the world, and they're connected through quality, one might say intimate relationships, intimate connections with everything else. And yeah, that word has weight. Why? Because it's connected to everything. It's embodied. For all the embodiment talk that Vervaeke does, he disembodies all his language and then says, well,
Right.
it's a book, and the book is like a well. And okay, you know what books are not like? Wells. Okay, sorry. They're just not. Okay, well, I go back to it and I learned something new. Yeah, that means you were an idiot the first time you read it. And if you go back and get something new the second time you read it, that's all that means. If you go back and get something new the third time you read it, you were still an idiot, right? And if you go back and read it again and you get more out of it, well, that means you were an idiot the first 2 times you read it. Why is this a revelation? It's almost as if, Elizabeth, the world is huge and you're small. That's almost what it's like. And then, yeah, you can get more out of a good text. And not all texts are good, so it doesn't work for all texts, right? But also, is it Epictetus, right? Can't step in the same river twice because the river moves. Yeah. And you change. That's what Epictetus says, right? It's both. It's both. So, of course, when you read a book again, you're going to get something new out of it, you idiot, because you're not the same person. Genius. These are not genius takes by smart people. Okay. This is obvious stuff that anyone can figure out past the age of 4. Okay. I'm sorry you didn't think of it that way. I'm sorry you thought the person that said it was some kind of ultra genius with a high IQ. And maybe they were. This is not a high IQ take, however, guys. It's really not.
But maybe it is because IQ's all right hemisphere, man. IQ is right hemisphere. McGilchrist is clear as crystal. So actually we're talking about genius. And the other thing, I don't know if you listened to, there was I don't even remember his name. There's a conversation with Peterson. And this is an important point. Like it really helped me figure this one out. Speech, and you can see it with Silvio and Rosina. Speech is a technology as well, and they bloody well know it. And so they handle it just like they handle the damn boats. They handle it with care. Speech is a technology, not just reading. And so they live that way, and so they don't, they can't be enchanted, falsely enchanted. And so what's really interesting to me though is because they're in reality, their intuition is so highly what would the word be, refined, I guess, that they actually move their bodies like a dance here. Their bodies move to a dance that they all understand, and they've all been enacting for generations on this island. And so it's all a dance. This place is literally a dance. And so, and they're highly artistic. Oh my gosh. When the fishermen, like, and they don't, like, me, Mrs. Individual, like, oh my God, I've been to museums, so whatever. But when the fisherman's, and he does it right. If you, because it's super hot here, obviously. And so he's the one fisherman that really understands reality, because he'll even love this. It reminds me of the Trolls. There's a gangplank or a walkway going out to the dock where the Aliscafo comes. He'll actually bend his body over. Like, this is what I love too. Like, it's so fairy tale. This is, and he's quite a good sized man, and he's old. But he'll literally bend his body over to crouch and be under the protection of this walkway so that he's in the cool when he's cleaning the fish, so they couldn't possibly get contaminated. Literally, he'll be bent over like this for like an hour cleaning the fish so that they won't be contaminated. And so they're totally living in reality. And the other, so what's interesting too, I said to him one night, and he doesn't talk very much, so you only get well, of course he doesn't. And so he was telling me about there's cutters of the wind here. They're called cutters of the wind. And so this is just the tradition in these islands, that there were people who knew the words to cut the wind. Oh, well, so everybody thinks, how stupid is that? Like,
Mhm.
this is interesting too. So this is my other thing. But so everybody says how ridiculous this is, that some people say that some people used to be able to go out, and when there are these, they're called vortice, well, I don't know, trombodaria, so they're whirlwinds of, well, like the one that, I don't know if you followed that, but there was a huge boat hired by some rich people recently, I think in the summertime, and one of these trombodaria, which is
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like a mini tornado,
Mhm.
ditched the boat. Anyway, they know how to, there's words that they know, to cut the wind. And
Right.
and
Right.
so, and guess when the words are given? The words are always given from one older person to another person on
To
Christmas
another.
Eve. Oh, how stupid
Right.
is all this? And and um and and there's he was telling me, and they do there's a sign of the cross. Oh, how
Right.
stupid. Oh, how stupid is this?
Right.
The horizontal and the vertical for this?
Yeah, for cutting the wind.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. And
No,
how
it's
stupid
all
is this?
it's all connected and
How
embodied.
crazy is it?
Yeah,
And
Jesse, what do you got for us? What do you got for us?
sorry.
That's all right. Just before I go, the
Oh, you're going. Sorry.
yeah, I just want to say, the importance of words for particularly for men, but also I guess for everyone. But it's more so true. It's been true of history historically that a man is defined by his word or keeping his word.
Mm,
So that's why
mm,
you would, when you're experiencing these people of great heritage, say it that way. Of course, they're going to be not removed from a conversation, but they're going to be watching their words ever so carefully.
right.
Because in some sense, you are your words.
Right.
It's a very strange notion, but
Yeah.
to communicate more is to communicate. It's fascinating contrast there with what you reveal and what you don't reveal in with your words, and so and oral agreements were always considered far more moral and binding or truthful than the left brain dead piece of paper that says you're going to fulfill all these obligations, where you can
Yeah.
just go, well, the spirit of X was that you were meant to deliver me 100 fish and you've delivered me 90, but in the spirit of the agreement I will accept that, because it's not about the to the letter you have to deliver me 90. It's like, well, that's we can fulfill that as a community function. So we can see that, yeah, in some sense, I hate to say Viveki's right, but there are psychotechnologies, which is what Elizabeth has been talking about here, that are far more truthful than what we rely on now, which is, being
Right.
our words going into these things. And are they going to last? We'll find out. But
No.
it's yeah, no,
They
they
already
won't be
they
true.
already
Yeah,
haven't,
yeah,
right? I
exactly.
mean, people have lost whole worlds they've created inside of video games because the company stopped
Oh,
supporting the infrastructure. And then
oh,
people
yeah,
are upset.
yeah,
And I'm like, well, yeah, it was cheap to build. It wasn't going to last. Like, it doesn't make any sense to
yeah.
even do that.
The
Right. And
Apple, those 3D glasses that everyone was trying to promote. It's just, yeah,
dude, just
yeah, another
freaking
veil. Yeah,
the Disney game, that they had this whole stupid game that I got sucked into because I had a PS4, right? That I bought, and I had a blast, right? I didn't spend a huge amount of time on. I'm not a huge gamer. I never have been. Like I built up a bunch of stuff, and they discontinued the whole thing and like wiped it all out. I was like, what the hell, man? Like, come on. Like, I thought it was so cheap to run, they'd never do that. But of course, Disney's been in financial trouble for more than 10 years now, no matter what anybody tells you. They've been having a lot of problems, but it's something about being a consistent whole person to live up to your word, right? Because you have two faces. You have your actions and your words, roughly speaking. Maybe there's more, but just for our purposes, there's two, and they should match because that would make you a whole person, right? And then you would be more of a person if you did what you said and said what you did, obviously, right? But we've lost the discernment for that wholesale. I mean, this is what I was fighting last Friday, right? And today on the live stream in Vanderclay's little estuary experiment online. And these people are just like, they clearly can't listen to what I'm saying. Not all of them, but some of them for sure. And they're just making up, like, one guy was like, "You're not even paying attention to the stream." I'm like, "Bro, I've asked 5 questions about the stream specifically. I'm hearing everything and they don't understand. I can read your stupid live stream in real time and listen to every single word they say and understand it better than you can, because I was just born with that ability for whatever freaking reason. I'm just an outlier in that, and maybe some other things, but certainly that. And you don't know that, and fair enough, but you're presuming a bunch of things. And I had to push back on the guy and say, no, that's not true. They just haven't answered any of my questions. And that's fine. It's Paul's stream. He can answer or not answer. He can pay attention or not. You guys could answer for him or not. Like, I'm not mad. I don't care. I'm just trying to make things better. And if I can, I can. And if I can't, I can't, which is the theme this Friday, right? That Luke was like, "Oh, you should get in there and straighten him out." And I'm like, "No, I've been trying for 5 years. It hasn't worked. I'm not the guy. I'm okay with that." I tried my best as far as I could, and I failed, and that's okay. Like, I'm not upset about it. It is what happened, right? But to keep your word, or to keep true to your word, means that the two faces that you have, the face of your words and the face of your actions, are in alignment, and therefore you can be trusted, right? Because that contrasts with reality, and it contrasts with other people, and that's far more important than the alternative. And Jets, you have something else to say? I know you have to go, but I don't.
The other way to say this is penance and repentance. When someone says, I'm sorry, and then it says, okay,
right,
sorry, but I'm sorry, and I will try and do X, or I will just do X, or I'll walk in that forgiveness.
right.
That's quite important. And depending on your Christian background, let's just say we're talking to that sort of audience, you'll probably be deferring to one, and you need to balance with the other. So that's something to realize. The other thing, Merry Christmas. It's been a great year, and just remember that there was a 4th gift given, and that's the gift of life. So, because that which came to life brings life. So,
Excellent.
Merry Christmas all.
Merry Christmas. Jesse, get in touch with me. We got to do
Merry Christmas.
Merry
Jesse.
Christmas, sir. Enjoy. Even though he's upside down internet. I got to catch up real quick. Sally said some good stuff. Sally, where I am from, there is a diction between those who have sense or not. Sometimes horse sense. I like horse sense, though. I've heard that before. But in general, sense means someone who you can trust to work with physically. Building, with livestock, yeah, probably lots of things, right? Sally, or anything that will move around others. Yeah, well, anything you can participate with is probably a better way to say that, Sally. You should know better. If you don't work as a kid enough, it's thought you don't get enough sense. Right. It's working that gives you sense. Right. Everything else doesn't. Everybody talks about sense making. Oh, you mean the fact that you didn't go out enough and chop wood like I did when you were young, or learn to sail, or, take martial arts, or on and on and on. I could go on. 4-H, Boy Scouts. Sally, including driving tractors, your uncle's old truck, right? Distinction, not diction. Oh yeah, fair enough. And then Ixnon, IQ is a measured quantity, right? Not a quality. It's a dissection. IQ is a dissection of your knowledge or something, right? Or your remembrance of your knowledge, which is worse. Because A, you've got to retrieve the memory, and B, you have to translate the memory, and C, you have to translate what you read, and you, right, it's on and on and on. There's so many pieces. That's going to be, maybe that'll be the theme for next week. Maybe the theme for next week will be going in order and step by step, because a lot of people just skip steps, and this causes them all kinds of logical errors. And then they go, I'm really logical. And I'm like, holy crap, you are the least logical person I've met in a long time. I think because you jump steps. And when you jump steps, the logic doesn't happen. Sally Joe, people without sense will immediately turn around with a board and smack you. Yes, that's true. Right. Sense is also awareness. And they talk about sense making. And I'm like, do you mean your awareness of the world? Because there's attention and there's awareness. And Vervaeke doesn't talk about awareness. And to be fair, I don't think Jonathan Bijot does either, right? That's a tricky subject, awareness, right? Because your relevance realization, as Vervaeke uses it, as near as I can tell, is going to be wrapped up in awareness and attention, not just attention, right? And he's always going to fall into this trap because he's always going to have to go higher on the vertical causality scale to something rational and higher and pre-existing. And he's never going to do that, right? Because he's a creation denier. And so he's always going to run into these little mysteries to solve. And that's a good way to keep the conversation going forever, which came up last week, right? Like, oh, we can keep this conversation going forever. Yeah, you can never resolve any subject you want. Is that better? Never resolving the subject? So, Elizabeth, are you going to go to Symbolic World 2 if they have one, or are you going to stay hidden on your island forever and we'll never see you again? That's the question.
I don't know, Mark. I don't know. Awareness is right.
Uh-oh.
Hemisphere attention. Connection's bad. Yeah.
It went bad, but it came back.
Yeah, awareness is, McGilchrist calls it right hemisphere attention. Awareness, he uses the exact word.
John
Instead
Vervaeke
of highly focused left hemisphere in order to grasp a seed if you're a bird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Vervaeke talks about the salience landscape. And what I think he's referring to there, although I don't know, because I don't think he's ever made it clear, at least not that I know of. I think he's talking about objective material reality, right? Like all the things that you could be aware of or something, right? But that skips over awareness and its role in managing attention, right? Because you
For
can't,
sure.
you can't attend to something you're not aware of, right? Until I make people aware of the fact that there's a refrigerator behind you, they weren't paying attention to that. Right. And then if you move your camera so there's no refrigerator in the frame, the refrigerator still exists, but you're not aware of it anymore. And you can't become aware of it. Right. Until it comes into the frame. And then awareness is an option. But that doesn't change your attention. It just changed the potential for your attention. And no one likes that because it's a lot of moving parts. And science hates multivariate equations. But also, that's what the world is. The way you resolve multivariate equations is with poetic ways of informing the world and being able to engage symbolically with the world. That's all. And that's your intuition, right? That's not your logic, reason, rationality. That's not your cognition. It's your intuition. And I think, a lot of people would fold cognition and intuition together without having a definition of either, because this is what we're doing now. I don't know why. It seems rather insane, but then you end up with weird solutions like take courses from the best professors ever. And then the courses are lectures. And I'll tell you
No
a story.
kidding.
I've told this story before. So very, very, very early on in the education revolution, where education went online and it was very beginning. This guy named Andrew Ng, who's extremely famous in computer science circles for his machine learning course in particular. So I took the machine learning course online from Andrew Ng back in the day. I don't think it was 3 months old by the time I took it. And of course, I took it in a weekend because I'm a complete psychopath. And when I do a thing, I do it completely. And so I got a lot out of the lectures. But then I was reading the forums associated with the course, and people were saying the best thing about this course was working with the TAs
Yeah.
to learn MATLAB. And MATLAB was, and still is, but like it was a huge tool at the time for doing data science and mathematics. And they were using it back in the day for neural networks and machine learning and AI, right? And his course was machine learning. I mean, it covered some AI, but it was machine learning. That's what I was studying at the time. And so, like, nobody's saying like, well, these lectures were so great that this is what I learned from.
Right,
Everyone's
right.
saying, no, the real value here is the hands-on experience with this awesome tool. Now, we can argue about whether or not hands-on experience is applicable in a piece of software. I would say no. You would say no. But it's not nothing, right? It's better than a freaking lecture, right? And so you can see that depth and that intuition and the idea of a hands-on tool that's strictly virtual, kind of silly. Also, why do we call it that? Right, because it's deeper than just listening to a lecture, right, or a TED Talk. And I've often said, like, yeah, the revolution is we've evolved the internet from TED Talks, where somebody's standing on a stage barfing their idea out at the audience, right, to these people having like one-on-one conversations, right, like the Joe Rogan type thing, to now these deep, long conversations with multiple people that are, quote, sense making, right? So it's evolved from TED Talk to debate to conversation to multi-person conversation, right? And it's multi-involvement, and now people are engaged because there's live chats and there's interaction with the chat and all that, and then you get to Peterson, who does a stage show, and there's the Slido app, and you can ask questions, and they format the questions and ask the top 10 right live in front of you while you're there. It's an increase in participation over time. That's because participation is what we've been seeking. Participation is the solution to the meaning crisis. That's why you need a wisdom community workbook, which will probably be out in January.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, for sure. But the only problem is, Mark, like to Sally's point, which is the same point that I'm making. It's her American point, and I'm making a Sicilian point. But it's the same point. And so, yeah, you need to be picking the olives together too, and driving your old uncle's rickety tractor. And yeah, I don't know, but maybe we'll be able to, like you're saying, at least have some form of participation, which, as you're saying, which, as you pointed out, is better than a lecture.
Right. And I think the mistake people are making is they're still living in the flat world. So they're upgrading the flat world by one item, we'll say, or one perspective. And so they'll say, well, reading isn't sufficient. You need to read old books, right? And so I agree that's an upgrade, right? But it's just like, no, like that's not going to solve it, right? Like, oh, well, the problem with the education system is bad teachers. No, it's not. It's too many administrators. Like, I don't even, like, where you get, look at the data. It's sitting right in front of your face. At that point, you're just denying the obvious, right?
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true, Mark.
But they're still in the flat world. And so they're upgrading the flat world with like one little thing. And I'm like, no. Dimensionality means that when you make that leap, you're upgrading with 5, 6, 7 things all at once, right? Which is to say that there's a huge difference between reading a book by yourself and reading it with the book club. A huge difference. It's not even the same thing at all, right? Like one's reading and the other one's like not reading somehow, right?
Yeah, I agree. It's for sure. And you can feel it, right? A book club, a book club is very palpable. That everything becomes heavy because because to the point I was making about the people here, the words become heavy in a book club. They're laden with meaning. I love what you said about the moving parts. It's so important. It can't be overstated about the reality of the moving parts of everything, including us. It's just, I mean, so it's the dance again, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And the intelligibility that everybody seeks is something you have to take responsibility for curating and manifesting, right? This is where everybody falls down. They're like, well, the intelligibility is just there. And it's like, no, the potential for intelligibility is there.
Yeah.
But you have to bring heaven and earth together, which means
free
you're
will.
the one doing the weaving, you idiot. You, and not just you, but like you have to do it anyway, even if nobody else does it. Right? Like it doesn't matter if other people are participating or how well. It matters if you participate and how well. That's all you have control over anyway. Why are you worrying about this other? Why are you worrying about foreign wars? Like why are you worrying about what's going on the off island? If you live on the island, like why are you worrying about that? You have enough to worry about day to day, just doing the right thing and being aware of more and more of the world that you're already in. Like I got to worry about the stupid
Mark.
beaver. This beaver is freaking up the whole pond. And there's no danger to the house. He can't flood the house or anything like that. That can never happen, right? But I don't want him to break the dam, right? Which means we've got to dispatch the beaver somehow. I might have to go back to my French Canadian roots and trap the little bastard. I don't know.
Yeah. We have beavers up here, babe, and it's not great. They're tenacious creatures. They're finally have to do what you have to do.
They're super destructive. It wouldn't be so bad if we cut down the trees I want cut down, but no, he doesn't even do that. He's a rude beaver. He won't cooperate and participate. And so now it's opponent processing. That means war, by the way. Opponent processing always ends in war. Doesn't end any other way. I break it to you. Mathematically certain, by the way. I don't know why people love this opponent processing idea. I think it's the worst idea ever. But it's sort of obvious that it is. So whatever, you didn't catch it. But also, it's a stupid idea. Don't do that. Don't be an opponent. Don't set things against. Right? Knit them together. Weave them together. You curate them so that they come together. They're not going to be together on their own. The world isn't something for you to conform to strictly. You have to help manifest the goodness in the world. Potential for goodness is there, but it requires your engagement.
For sure. Yeah, things have to be gathered. Like Pajot's always talking about, you've got to be gathering constantly together because and it sounds simple. It sounds simple, but it works.
Right. Well, that's where all the miracle lies, right? The miracle lies in realizing that when you start taking responsibility for weaving the world that you're in locally together better, right? Bringing the higher and the lower together in the right way, right? And you're going to screw it up a lot for sure. But when you do that, that's when the miracles just start happening left, right, and center. Right? When you're doing it, not when other people are doing it for you. When you're doing it.
Right. And that verb cannot be overstated. It's what you're actually doing. And it's true. It's true, and that's where the miracles happen, and meaning, and it was just like, it doesn't need to even be all of. So I think we need to make distinct choices too, though, right? We make choices to either create a place where we can do or not do, or we can have a diversion place, or we can have a doing place. Right. And I quite prefer the diversion places. You can imagine, Mark. I'm a diversion lady. I do it well.
I've seen this. But I can confirm.
It's deadly. It's not. Right. It's not good to be like it's not good to be brilliant at doing diversions and so that they appeal to everybody. That is actually not a good thing. That's
Right.
creating flatness, although it doesn't look like it, right?
Right.
That's
And
like
it's
what you were
attractive.
talking about.
It's attractive, right? It gives you attention, right? And it makes you different and special, and it makes you shiny and stand out, right? But when you're busy doing that, you're not knitting the world together and making it a better place and revivifying things and taking
Yeah,
responsibility.
like it's
And people see choice as a positive. And you know what? Choice is actually not a positive, right? Because people always bring choice down to a binary, and no choice you have has ever been a binary, or ever will be, or ever could be. Right? You can cast things as a binary. I understand that because you can identify against. You can say, no, I'm going to have a sandwich instead of having a steak. You can do that. I get that. But there's other things that you could have had also, and you're excluding all of them by picking
right,
one thing.
right.
And so you need to be careful what you exclude. Well, it just turns out you can exclude bad things. And then that brings the number of choices down, because there's way more bad things in the world than there are good things anyway. So that would help you if you start by, let's exclude the bad things with our choice, and then we'll choose, right? Because choices are exclusions, right? They're not like pluses. I have the power to choose. Yeah, you have the power to exclude most of the world. That is
Right,
true. Be sure
right.
you're excluding the right part and not the wrong part, please. Right. And
Yeah, it is
that's
exclusion.
right. Well, and that I think, and that is, a good note to end on. I know it's really late for you there, but I really appreciate seeing you.
I
And
just
Merry
love your
Christmas.
live streams. I miss them, Mark. I really miss them.
Well, you can drop in anytime. It would suggest a time, email me or whatever, suggest a time. We'll do an earlier one you can drop in on. How's that?
Oh,
So
you're very kind indeed. Very kind indeed. So, yeah, it's great. I really, I mean it sincerely. I've learned a lot again this evening. I just, you've said about 10 things this evening that are brilliant and insightful and give people a way of
thank you.
looking at it's you're framing everything, man. You're giving this frame, and that in itself is beautiful. Exclusions rather than choice. That's absolutely true. How you know all these things is beyond me. I just need to ask you one question. Why do you have a skull and crossbones back there?
That's my pirate flag. I'm upgrading.
I know, but how long has it been there?
Oh, that's pretty new. Castle sort of came in and like wiped out my entire supremacy of pirate stuff, which
Oh.
sort of motivated me to up my game. So I've been slowly upping my game. I'm gonna up my game some more. But yeah, it's been a long road. But we'll see. We'll see what happens next year. Things are gonna pop next year, so we get a lot planned, and we got the book. I've got a book club that I'm gonna run. I've never run a book club before. That should be fun. 12 Rules for Life based, and then we're gonna do the Matrix thing. I know Ixnon's pissed. A bunch of people are pissed. They want to see the Matrix thing. I got to get with Jesse. Things have been crazy on both ends. I've been in and out of the hospital, right? So there's all kinds of things going on. But next year things are on track. I think things are, there's going to be a lot popping, and yeah, I mean, it's great to hear that you're over there sort of full time, Sally. Glad you have found a place to hold you together. I hope someday you'll be back to the mainland, Elizabeth, because I need you to be the one who knows more than me. There you go. Well, for Sally's sake, Elizabeth, you have to come back at least once and bring some Sicilian wisdom from the islands back with you and impart it onto Sally.
Yeah, it's really cool. Sally and I live in the same world, and she's there and I'm here. So go figure that one, everybody.
I know. Yeah, no, and we had so much fun in Florida, so that was a blast. But
it's all been good. Yeah, like it's good. Yeah, we shared meal. There you go, man. That'll do it.
that's all that matters. At the end of the day,
Anyway,
you get to share a
have a
meal.
Merry Christmas with your beaver.
Thank you. Merry Christmas to you as well. Have a Merry Christmas on the island. So good to see you. I can't wait to
Take
talk to you
care.
again. See ya.
Same with you, Sally. Same with everybody. Ciao.
Ciao. I love it. It's a nice Italian way to do it. There we go. I know she always has problems, so I'm gonna help her out. Listen, everybody, thank you so much. I will do another live stream next Friday. Yeah, I like this part. This don't jump around, don't jump steps, and so it's showing people maybe how to break things down. Because your logic, reason, rationality doesn't do you any good if you have the wrong set of steps, or if you have the wrong number of steps, or if you have the steps in the wrong order. Your logic, reason, and rationality is only going to lead you astray. And so this will be part of why logic, reason, and rationality can't help you, can't save the world, but sure as hell makes everything worse on a pretty regular basis. There's a lot of reasons, but that's one of them. So maybe we'll do that next week. If you've got any suggestions, leave them in the comments or whatever. Everybody have a Merry Christmas and a blessed holiday season, right? Like, because the world is magic all over the place. There's miracle everywhere, and this is the time of year to see it. High contrast. I went to La Salette up in Massachusetts right after Thanksgiving because they were open. It was just absolutely gorgeous. I mean, they do such a good job with the lights and the manger and the hot cider. It was cold. New England's just cold, although it's going to be cold here. It just won't be New England cold. So enjoy your holidays. Hopefully I'll see you next Friday. A lot of stuff coming in the new year. Stay tuned and take care. And look, just remember one important thing, right? And that is that the world needs you to be better. So do that.